Evening. All right, let's go ahead and get started. If you are visiting with us, welcome. If you're following along streaming, we appreciate your presence. My name is Charles Plemons. This is a study on Proverbs. And I know that Martha Vincent is watching tonight, and she had left me a message earlier, so check your mailbox. I've taken care of that for you. So, does anybody need the handout for Section 8? All right. So we, last week, got into Section 8, which is talking about advice that Proverbs has about the usage of the tongue. And we really just got started into this, so a couple of review items was some common sins of the tongue. And we were reminded that we're going to be accountable for the things that we say. Our speech matters. God hears everything that we say. We've never gotten away with anything one time in our lives. So he tells us, he warns us that we're accountable. And he tells us we need to guard our speech. We need to be careful with our speech because it does have impact on our own lives and on the lives of the people around us. And a couple of the sins that we talked about was, number one, was the idea of talking too much. And we remembered that, there's people who will just talk about foolishness. There were people who are talking about the things that they shouldn't be talking about, and the idea of idle chatter, just instead of working, you're occupying yourself with conversation. We use that example of the person who may be around the job site that you see them standing around and they're always talking to everybody else and you're not really sure what exactly they do. And, that's a problem. God tells us we should be busy. We shouldn't just be occupying ourselves with conversation, especially idle conversation, unproductive conversation. We also talked about the idea of whispering or tale-bearing. So we're back into the concept of gossip. Notice how often that comes up in Proverbs. We've talked about that repeatedly already. So the people who are saying the things to one another that they shouldn't, these are all considered sin. These are all things that God warns us not to do in Proverbs. Now I've got a note on here to turn to Matthew 15, if you would. So after class, Landon came up to me and said, hey, here's a good verse for us to look at. And I think his exact words is, you could start with this next week. So here we are, starting with it this week. So Matthew 15, and we're looking at verses 16 through 20. Matthew 15, 16 through 20. And this goes along so well with the things we've been talking about. It says, and he said, are you still lacking in understanding also? Do you not understand that everything that goes into the mouth passes into the stomach and is eliminated? But the things that proceed out of the mouth come from the heart, and those defile the man. For out of the heart come evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, slanderers. These are the things which defile the man. But to eat with unwashed hands does not defile the man. So here in verse 18, that really hammers home some of the things we've been talking about here in Proverbs. This idea of the things that come out of the mouth. Where does it say, if it's coming out of the mouth, where is it originating? The heart. Yeah, comes from the heart. We give voice to the things that we really feel. We give voice to our emotion. We give voice to sometimes things that ought not be voiced. And so it warns us that these things can defile us. So we should think about using our voice, using our words for the proper things, not the negative things. Yeah, right. It's a mirror, if you will. It's just showing exactly what's inside. And we show that through our words, through our actions, but our words have such power to display the way we really feel. I love the devotional this evening. That hit all around this same concept, right? How do our words reflect our Christianity? Do our words reflect our Christianity? And again, it's an easy concept to be on your good Christian behavior in church, right? But like you said, what about right after you leave, throughout the week? What is being reflected? What is being shown from your heart? So thank you, Landon, for pointing that one out. That was a very good one. And again, if you all come up with things after class that you want to talk about, that you'd like discussed in class, if you don't feel like bringing it up in class, come up and see me, text me, whatever. We'll talk about it, and we'll try to work it in if we can. All right, so now let's get to number 3. Number 3 on our list of common sins of the tongue. Lying. So the telling of a deliberate falsehood. Now this is underlined here, the idea deliberate. There are plenty of people who will say things that are false, and they may not know that it's false. It's one thing to be mistaken and just wrong. It's another to deliberately mislead or deliberately say the wrong thing. So lying is the idea of deliberate falsehood. So Proverbs is going to tell us that God hates a lying tongue. Now, if you'll recall, early on in this study, we started listing out things that God hates. And we had that whole conversation about, we hammer home this idea that God is a God of love, but there are things that God hates. And lying is in that list. So let's look at a few verses here. Proverbs 6 and verse 17. Proverbs 6 and verse 17. So first of all, this is just in that list we were talking about. It says, a proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood. God hates these things. It's in the list of stuff that he does not like. A lying tongue. Turn over a few pages, Proverbs 12 and verse 22. Proverbs 12, 22. It says, lying lips are an abomination to the Lord, but those who deal truthfully are his delight. So if you'll recall, we talked about this term abomination. We don't use that very much except for maybe the abominable snowman. It means detested. It means aberrant. It means something that God can't stand. It's against his nature. Lying lips are an abomination to the Lord. But he's got a counter here. If that is wrong, he also gives us what is right then. What does he say here? Those who act faithfully, truthfully, those who are honest, those who are faithful or truthful are his delight. So, on one hand, we have what God hates. On the other, we have what pleases God. As Christians, we have a responsibility to attempt to please God. We want to please God. We want to please God because of all the duty that we have toward God. He has done so much for us. He has loved us so greatly. If we love him, we should be trying to do things that are a delight to him. Here's one of those things: truthfulness, being honest. What are the problems with lying? What can happen in the world with lying? People won't trust you. Okay, so you can have an immediate problem in your own life. Is if you are a liar, then people eventually will come to recognize that. And now when you are trying, we call this crying wolf sometimes. This idea that you need people to trust you, they don't. You've ruined your own reputation. That's a good one. What else?
You have to keep up, you have to keep up another lie, to keep up that lie, to keep up with the previous lie. It's quite a domino.
It is, yeah. It's almost like he's looked ahead. Look at the next bullet. Yeah. So we're going to talk about that verse here in a second. But yeah, you're spot on. One lie leads to another lie, which leads to another. It's this just downward spiral of problems. And before long, you can end up not even remembering what lies you've told, and you get caught up in this web, if you will. So one sin then, in a way, forces another, right? You don't want to get caught with what you said before, so you got to say something else. We're supposed to avoid sin. We're supposed to try to eliminate sin in our lives. If we're doing things that are forcing us to do more sin, that's a problem. Again, another impact on our own lives. What else? Causes injury to people. Yeah, so the injury in a lot of different ways. So it harms other people. So if you are telling someone information that is wrong, they're going to act or make decisions based on incorrect information. Pick up the instruction manual, and you've got the wrong manual for the product that you've got, and you start putting in the wrong stuff. What happens? It doesn't work. It's a problem. You've got bad information. Well, if you've provided someone bad information, now you've impacted their lives. It's not just a personal thing anymore. Lying can impact other people. It can be very harmful, and there's all kinds of different ways it can be harmful. It can even be fatal. How many people have committed suicide because they have believed something that someone else has told them that's just not true, and they just can't deal with whatever that is? It can be that serious. It can impact others. These are good. Anything else that you can think of? What are impacts in the world of lying? You make the wrong decisions. Absolutely. So it's important for us to make the best possible decisions using the truth. Let's put this in a religious standpoint. We talked about physical death. How about spiritual death? What if you have someone who is getting up in a religious setting and outright lying to people? And they are lying and say, here's the way to heaven. And it's wrong. What's the fallout of that? People follow them. Right. So we're no longer talking about physical death. We just upped the ante of lying. How serious can lying be? The loss of your soul, I can't think of anything more serious than that. So we have this horrible term, the little white lie, right? We try to make that sound like, lying is not that big of a deal. Folks, it can be absolutely the worst thing that we can do to anyone. It's all in the context. It's all in how it plays out. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Lying is this sin that is tied to itself for perpetuating, but also others. Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, that's a fantastic example. Absolutely. Absolutely. Anything else?
How many cult groups or call what you want have died or been killed off or whatever because their leader decided that the lie ended?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. We have a phrase for that too. Don't drink the Kool-Aid, right? Yeah. We're familiar with this concept. This is not a foreign concept to us. These are lessons that we know and we learn, yet we still continue to lie. We as a people lie. We believe lies. We look for lies. We generate lies. There's nothing more precious than the truth. And dealing truthfully, it says God delights. And so, as you mentioned, lies can be found out. Proverbs 12:19. So we were just in verse 22. Look back a couple of verses. It says, "The truthful lip shall be established forever, but a lying tongue is but for a moment." Well, ultimately, the only thing that will stand is truth. All falsehood, all lies, eventually somehow will be found out. Now, you may lie and not get caught in your lifetime. But when are you going to truly be found out? All of us are going to face judgment. No one is going to get away with falsehood. Eventually, it's going to be found out. Lying, it says, is but for a moment. Again, that could be your entire lifetime. But our lifetime is just this little smidge in the grand scheme of eternity. Lying will be found out. But truthful lips, it says, what will be established forever? The truth will always stand. God gives us the true word. It will stand. The truth will always stand.
Revelation doesn't make any distinction between a white lie and a black lie. It says all.
Yeah.
All are have their part, like the part.
Yeah. Yeah. So lying is absolutely critically serious. So a good way to avoid being caught in a lie is to be truthful instead. If you haven't lied, you can't be caught in your lie. Now, just because you speak the truth doesn't mean that everybody's going to believe you. There are plenty of people who won't believe truth. But if you are dealing with the truth will stand. Falsehood will not. Any other thoughts on those? Those are great examples. All right. Let's look at number 4 then. Number 4 is the flatterer. The flatterer. So, this is different than the person who comes up and gives you a compliment that is well-meaning, well-intended. This is the person who is giving you praise either for an ulterior motive, they're trying to manipulate you or manipulate someone else, or they're false in it. They're coming up and they're saying one thing to your face, but then as soon as you leave, what do they say to somebody else? Something completely different. So compliments are not a problem. Don't think, oh, well, he said don't be a flatterer, I'm never going to compliment anyone. That's not what this is talking about. Compliments are extremely important. Think about the motivation and the encouragement and the uplifting that you get when people compliment you, especially in a religious setting. If somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I appreciate what you've done for, the camp, or what you've done on Sunday morning, or the cards that you've been writing, or the prayer that you offer, whatever it is, those things build us up. That is a great positive use of the tongue. But how do you feel when somebody comes up to you and they're all so very nice to you and all very friendly, and then you find out that as soon as you're gone, they're saying everything else about you? What does that do to you? Yeah, completely tears you down. So that's the concern that we're talking about here, the idea of the flatterer. So this is a person that is hiding their hatred, or maybe their jealousy, or their anger. There's some kind of negative emotion that they are covering up by pretending to be positive. pretending to be your friend, pretending to be good to you. Like I said, they can be trying to manipulate. They want something from you. So they come up and they tell you all this good stuff, and they don't mean a bit of it. They just hope that you will like them enough that you will do whatever it is that they want you to do. But that eventually will be found out. So this is related, if you will, to lying or truth. The flatterer is a person who is false. This is a very specific variation of lying, really. So let's look at a few verses. So Proverbs 10 and verse 18. Proverbs 10, 18. So it says, whoever hides hatred has lying lips, and whoever spreads slander is a fool. All right, so this one that's a twofer. It's talking about that idea of the whisperers or the talebearers, but this idea of hiding this hatred. They're covering up this hatred with a mask of love or positivity. Turn over several pages, Proverbs 27 and verse 6. Proverbs 27 and verse 6. Now, we talked about the first part of this verse a while back in our study on friendship, but we're going to look at the second half here. Proverbs 27, verse 6. It says, faithful are the wounds of a friend, but the kisses of an enemy are deceitful. So that can be physical. They come up, they hug you, they kiss you, they shake your hand, whatever. But that can also just be the conversation, the polite things they have to say, the greetings, whatever it is. This could be a physical thing. This could be a verbal thing. But the point it says here is it's deceitful. There's a motive behind it. All right, a page or so over, Proverbs 28 and verse 23. Proverbs 28, 23. It says, he who rebukes a man will find more favor afterward than he who flatters with the tongue. All right, now this one we need to dissect a little more. He who rebukes a man will find more favor afterward than he who flatters with the tongue. So, what does it mean to rebuke someone? Correct them? Yeah. Yeah, so you call out a problem. You give them some kind of advice, or you just bring up, hey, what you're doing is incorrect, this needs correction, to bring to their attention that something is wrong. Now, show of hands, who all enjoys being told when they're wrong? We just talked about lying, sir. We talked about what attitude we should have, though, when we were talking about friendship, what friends do for us. When a friend corrects us, someone who cares enough to look and see you're doing something wrong, even though we don't enjoy being wrong, and we probably don't enjoy it being pointed out to us, spiritually, that is huge. In this world, that can be huge. I would rather be told that I'm wrong than continue doing wrong. I'm not going to like the fact that I was wrong. Right. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You're wasting your time. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. And be thankful for it, ultimately. Now, again, that immediate reaction, oh man, you might be disappointed in yourself, you may be mad at yourself, you may be shocked that they came up and said something to you. It varies wildly depending on what they're rebuking you about. So
Somebody who's really good at it can rebuke you, and you won't even go, oh, that's rebuking.
yeah, you may not even know it. Yeah, you didn't even see it coming.
Yeah, you're correcting me, but they're doing it so well that
Yeah,
there's no offense taken.
yeah,
There's a right way to wrong way.
yeah. And there's so many tactics for that. Yes, sir.
It makes me think of a person that needs to be told, and the consensus in a small group says somebody's got to tell this person they're wrong. And somebody in the group says, I'm his friend, I'll go tell him.
Yeah. Yeah, it's easier coming from a friend.
Me than he will the rest of you
Yeah,
guys.
absolutely. And part of that is because of that relationship, and we talked about that friendship relationship, so absolutely. So, you're talking about these different ways, the right way, wrong way. I think about, there's the old theory of the compliment sandwich. If you got to tell somebody something negative, you tell them something positive, then you get to the negative, and then you put something positive in there, so you got two slices of bread around the meat of whatever this is.
We all know lying doesn't have to be words. It can be a look. It can be an inference. It can be just like this correcting. Yeah, how people can sense sincerity. That you're not doing it to spite. You're not doing it. I mean, that's kind of the unwritten deal is that your image or your essence that you're portraying, people can read, where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Besides just words.
Yeah, many times. Now there's some people that struggle with that. Picking up. So that's not 100%, but I get what you're saying. Is often that is the case, especially when you have that established friend relationship. So if we rebuke someone, it says we'll find more favor than the person who flatters with the tongue. So it flatters with the tongue. Think about the scenario. The flatterer is the person that doesn't really care if you're right or wrong. They are just telling you what you want to hear. Well, all of us like to hear what we want to hear, but how good is that for us? So again, we're talking about the long game here. We're talking about over time. If someone comes to you honestly and rebukes you and helps you, you're going to end up having more favor for that person than the person who just tells you, oh, you're the best ever. That was great. That was wonderful. You're doing a great job. And you later find out that they knew that you were completely wrong in that. I think about a work scenario. There could be somebody who they know that their coworker is not doing something right, and they keep encouraging them. And maybe their ulterior motive is they want that person's job, or they want the raise, or they want the recognition, or whatever. And you find out, well, you knew the whole time I was doing this wrong, and you said nothing. You encouraged me in this, but then behind the back, can you believe what they're doing? They're just, they don't know what they're doing, and yet they egg it on. So that's the kind of thing that we're talking about here. The person who is flattering, the person who is saying, doing, encouraging the wrong things, or even the right things for the wrong reasons. It's a specific form of lying. Right.
You will think differently about that person once you get over it.
Right.
You might even go to them and ask something later because you know they're going to tell you how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Those people are so very valuable, for your advancement, either career-wise, personally, in a religious setting. So absolutely we look for those kinds of people. And a lot of times they may become friends, but you're right, it doesn't have to be a friend. But it is someone who at least is showing you the respect to be honest, if not the love to be honest.
And you feel differently towards those kind of people.
Yeah.
Not like them in the moment, but later you'll go
And that requires work on our part. We have to have the attitude to reflect and evaluate, am I wrong? My dad has a saying, he said, I made a mistake once, I thought I was wrong. Is that the kind of attitude that we adopt? Or are we willing to take that feedback and reflect on it? And again, it may not be immediate, but
I remember when I was a little boy once years ago when I was a kid, basically, a guy named Jay Hillison. He was talking about if you could do this perfectly, Jesus not only was the only sinless man, he was probably the only perfectly sincere man. But it's just 4 lines. It says, sincerity is to speak as we are, to do as we profess, perform what we promise, and the most important thing is to be as we would seem. So if you're able to do all those things perfectly, but there again, I say that to say this, is if you're correcting someone like that, people know if you are a sincere person in what your life, they know you. I mean, there again, if you're rebuking somebody you don't know, it's a completely different thing, but usually it's going to be someone who knows you and knows your life history. And that gives you credibility to
yeah,
an extent.
knowing your character, if you will.
And them taking it the right way.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that poem. So, we're warned here about the flatterer. Any other thoughts on flattery and that specific type of deception? All right, let's look at number 5. Number 5 was talked about in our devotional just a while ago. Angry words. Angry words. Now, we are making a differentiation here between righteous anger and thoughtless anger. We know that one can be righteously angered. We see Jesus being angered. We talk about God's wrath. What is wrath? It's another word for anger. Yeah, extreme anger. Is God unrighteous? Certainly not. So there can be a difference in anger. So, first of all, we have to recognize that words can stir up anger or provoke anger, if you will. Turn back a few pages to Proverbs 15. Proverbs 15 and verse 1. And we're going to see both our words here, wrath and anger. Proverbs 15, verse 1. It says, a soft answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. All right, so this goes right in line with the conversation we just had about the right way and the wrong way to do things. For the idea of rebuking, it falls into this very easily. But there's so many things in life where this holds true. The way that we answer something or the way that we address something matters. It says a soft answer. That doesn't mean a weak answer. What does a soft answer imply? Yeah, deliberate, thought out. We talked about guarding your mouth. The soft answer is the one that is not designed to have the barbs on it. It is not designed to hurt. It is intended to deliver truth in the most acceptable way possible. Now, truth hurts. You can only soften some things so much, but you can harden a lot of things too. We can make things come across much worse. Right. And so it says here, the harsh word stirs up anger. So this idea of how do you correct someone, if we use that as the example again. you see on the TV shows, you hear the stories all the time, like the idea of, you can't hurt my feelings. I used to hold the flashlight for my dad, So you hand them the wrong tool, or you put the flashlight in the wrong spot, So are you corrected in we'll shine it over here, or are you yelled at? And if you see the TV tropes, what happens? You see all the dads yelling at the kid or whatever, shine it over here. That's not a hammer, whatever. So this idea of addressing things in a soft way or a harsh way. Yes, sir.
I know police officers and others that deal with challenging situations with people are taught to de-escalate.
Yes. Yeah. So de-escalate implies that things are already escalated. So de-escalation is very important. You put the soothing words, the soft words, the way to bring things down. There's also the idea of not escalating to begin with. So that's also an important law enforcement skill, is not getting things to ramp up. And that's what we're talking about here. We need to have the soft answer, the soft touch, the thought out way of addressing things. Now, this is talking about how to not stir up anger. If you are already angry, how much harder is this? How do you answer things when you're already mad yourself? Is your first thought, I need to do this tactfully. I need to have the soft touch. I need to not stir up wrath. I've known people that they seem to live for an argument. And, once one gets started up, the other gets started up. And just, oh my goodness, wow, what's going on here? It just spirals out of control in a hurry. So sometimes we speak in haste. Words are said without thought. Turn back a page or two, Proverbs 12:16. Proverbs 12:16. I like this one. If you're one to write in your Bible, you might want to underline this one. This is a good one. Proverbs 12:16. It says, a fool's wrath is known when? At once. But a prudent man covers shame. A fool's wrath is known at once, but a prudent man covers his shame. Or covers shame. So, that's talking about that knee-jerk reaction. That's talking about losing control. That's talking about not thinking through the way you react, the way you speak, the way you communicate. If you are a fool and you get mad, what's it say? Everybody's going to know it. They're going to know right away. Why? Why do they know? Because you're out of control. You're saying things and doing things that you ought not be doing. And it could be, like you said, the look. It could just be a look. It could be body posture. It could be words spoken. It could be actions taken. We had a guy at work one time years and years and years ago. He got mad. He was on the phone, and he had a pencil in his hand, and he slammed the phone down, and he slammed that pencil on the desk, and it flew up and stuck in the ceiling. Was there any doubt that he was angry? No doubt. And he had a reputation for being just flying off the handle. We communicate through our words, but also our actions. All right, turn back to Proverbs 15. Proverbs 15, verse 18. It says, a wrathful man stirs up strife, but he who is slow to anger allays contention. All right, there's some words we don't use a whole lot. So first of all, strife. We should be familiar with that word. It's not a common word, but what is strife? Tension, contention, discord. Yeah, disharmony. All right. Now, how about allay? A-L-L-A-Y. Yeah, quietens it down. What was that, Andy? Lessons. reduces it, or prevents it. So a wrathful man stirs up strife or contention. He who is slow to anger allays or prevents contention. So the wrathful man, again, we talked about that idea. If you're already mad or you've got that short temper, it's so easy for you to get others stirred up, to get others going down this path. And when we are angry, we are more likely to sin. So anger and using our words in anger, again, we see that snowball effect. If I'm mad, I'm out of control, I'm sinning, I'm causing others to do it, very likely by the way that I'm behaving. The things that I say, if I get somebody else firing back at me and neither one of us are acting like a Christian, what has happened to both of us? We're just wallowing in sin at this point. So, again, our words have impact on ourselves and on everybody around us. We can bring people down so quickly with just that look, with just that word, just that action. It absolutely matters. How many people are in prison right now because they got mad and they did something awful in that split-second moment? And there's the bell. All right, we'll pick up there next time.